We all know that it's very early in the 2016 presidential campaign cycle. And if we go back to this exact same very early point in the 2008, I think they called it back then, presidential race, we'll see that the setup on the Democratic side was basically the same as it is now. Everyone expected Hillary Clinton was going to run, and everyone called her the overwhelming Democratic favorite. But there were also some in the party who were searching for someone else. The first big name who was touted as the one who could beat Hillary was Mark Warner. He was the centrist governor of Virginia back then. He was really going to give Hillary a run. That's what people were saying back in 2005. Then attention shifted to John Edwards. Remember him? After running with John Kerry in 2004, he turned decisively against the war in Iraq, and he positioned himself as a populist. He was aiming to rile up the left against Hillary, and he started getting some real early traction in Iowa. I definitely fell for it. Back then, I wrote for the New York Observer that Hillary Clinton's, quote, Iowa predicament can be summarized in 2 words. John Edwards. Didn't quite work out that way, but you can add that to the list of things Google won't ever let me forget. There were also loud calls for Al Gore to get into the race back then, and for a while there was some suspense there, but he never really budged. And then in August of 2006, it all finally came into focus.
We owe our young men and women who we have sent to Iraq, we owe them the best that we can do to get them back home. We owe them. We have a solemn obligation to make sure that we are getting them home as soon as possible. They have a mission to finish, but we've got to give them a sense of that mission.
And so here we are again. Almost everyone thinks Hillary's running in 2016. She's again the overwhelming favorite. And now this week, rumblings of discontentment on the left, and a name to go with those rumblings. The name of another freshman senator with a passionate grassroots following. It's Elizabeth Warren. Jonathan Martin wrote about it in the New York Times this week. He said, "This disappointment in the promise of the Obama presidency and unease over a possible restoration of the Clintons have made Warren, who was sworn in just 10 months ago, the object of huge interest in the avatar of a newly assertive, fervently populist left." Warren says she doesn't want to run for president, but her speech to the AFL-CIO convention last month rallied the crowd to its feet in a way that a first-term Democratic senator and former law professor hasn't done since Barack Obama addressed the Democratic convention in 2004.
If we don't fight, we can't win. But if we fight, we will win. The budget, immigration, minimum wage, uphill battles, you bet. But however tough the challenge, however steep our climb, I am proud to stand with you, to march with you, to fight side by side with you. Our agenda is America's agenda. Let me hear it. Our agenda is America's agenda. And if we fight for it, we win.
And joining us now to discuss his reporting on Elizabeth Warren is New York Times political reporter Jonathan Martin. And back at the table with us, we have reigning game show champion Jackie Kucinich of the Washington Post, and McKay Coppins of Buzzfeed's back with us too. So Jonathan, let's just start with this. It seems like Elizabeth Warren is sort of having a moment here. We play the AFL-CIO speech from last month. She had a Senate floor speech this week on the eve of the shutdown that kind of got a lot of viral attention. We have your piece. Tell us, try to put this in some context right now. Do you think this is the start of something, or do you think this is just a moment she's going through here?
I think it has the potential to be the start of something. I think the start of it began long before this, though. I mean, I think in my reporting on this story, some folks that know her told me that she was getting approached to run for president even during the course of her Senate campaign last year, that when she was running in Massachusetts, folks would approach her then and tell her to run for president. So it's not necessarily new. What is different, I think, is this sense of disappointment, not always expressed publicly, but certainly there, Steve, on the left with President Obama. And as I put it in the piece, this notion that the Clintons coming back is a move to go back to a sort of DLC-style Democratic Party, the Bob Rubin, Larry Summers Democratic Party, that frankly, in this era, a lot of Democrats, younger Democrats especially, think of as sort of yesterday's news in a lot of ways. And not fitting for this moment that we're in, a moment where, in their eyes, the central issue facing the country is economic inequality.
And so the sort of the ties to Wall Street that the Democratic Party forged under Bill Clinton are something that right now are looked at differently by the base. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is we could put up, this is from Gallup, they do the weekly poll on Obama, on the president. Approval rating among Democrats, so still at 81%. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how much of an opening there is now, sort of on the left, relative to what there was, in the run-up to 2008, there was the Iraq vote, that hung over everything, and then there was do we really want the Clinton restoration? Is the opening, do you think, as big now, or is it,
I think it is bigger now, certainly, in part because of the rise of a younger generation of liberal activists. The challenge that Senator Warren would have, Steve, if she does run in 2016, is that, as you well know, there has always been the sort of, to put it in Ron Brownstein terms, the beer track, wine track in the Democratic primary. And until President Obama got the nomination in 2008, the beer track always won. Right? Mondale beat Hardin in 84. Gore beats Bradley in 2000.
Clinton beat Tsongas.
Of course. Right, Clinton beat Tsongas in 92. The list goes on and on and on. President Obama broke that streak in part because he had a different coalition. He had the upscale, NPR, latte-sipping, Prius driving coalition, but he also had African Americans. And so the combination of the wine track plus African Americans was just enough to beat Hillary Clinton in 2008. Could Senator Warren put together any similar kind of a coalition, or would she be more hemmed in with the traditional college town left as we know it? That, to me, is the big question. Besides the fact that, does she want to do it? I mean, that in the course of talking to people in this story is, a lot of folks say, look, it was hard enough to get her to run for the Senate in 2012. And this is going to be a pretty tough job.
Right, challenging Hillary Clinton.
But as we know, in American politics, how many examples do we have of candidates who didn't want to run and they wound up running?
And Barack Obama comes right to mind.
Mitt Romney.
Well, supposedly, he says after the fact he didn't want to run. That's
Eisenhower certainly comes to mind, right? You know, so.
Well, so what do we make of Hillary Clinton? And do you see any signs? Anybody here see any signs that the mood Jonathan's talking about in the Democratic Party, which has really been highlighted recently, a lot of attention here in New York to like Bill de Blasio winning this, the Bloomberg fatigue, the Wall Street. Is there any sign of Larry Summers
being torpedoed? Yeah.
Is there any sign of Hillary Clinton giving out any that she's going to modulate a little bit? She's going to adjust and she's going to move away a little bit from what Clintonism is kind of representing.
I think we've already seen that. Well, she had the challenge of spending 4 years as Secretary of State, where she engaged very little in domestic politics, where she saw at the same time in that same period the Democratic Party move to the left on a lot of issues. And so she was chained for 4 years to the issues that she ran on in 2008. I think we're going to see her move back to the left, although she's been fairly quiet for the last several months, right? I think that, we hear a lot from Clinton world whispers saying that she doesn't want to get out front and be the presumptive, nominee the way she was in 2008 because it didn't work out so well for her. But at some point she is going to have to come out and modulate, like you said.
Wait, and stories like this, in rumblings like you're picking up on, are the sort of thing that could force her out, I think, and that could make her move up her timetable a little bit. If she feels like, wow, there really is sort of movement building on the left, there really is, there are questions I sort of have to answer here, positions I have to take, that could change her timetable a little bit, I would think.
Well, absolutely. And I think she said in an interview this week that she's going to decide next year, or she's going to think about it next year. So, but which is hard to believe that she's not thinking about it right now, but, just for argument's
She's just
sake.
hanging out.
She's just hanging out.
She's just doing
but yeah, I mean, it could. But she doesn't have, Warren will have an issue with raising money that Clinton wouldn't have. She has this infrastructure already set up. She can take as much time as she wants because she has that. People already know her name. She has name ID. With some of these lesser-known candidates, as we all know, you do need to get out there sooner and faster.
Although the thing I say about Elizabeth Warren, I want to play this. This to me was the start. I know she'd been on the national stage before this, but this to me was really the launch. It was in August of 2011, and she had been filmed at a fundraiser in Massachusetts, and this video went viral. Let's just play a clip of that for a minute.
There is nobody in this country who got rich on his own. Nobody. You built a factory out there, good for you, but I want to be clear. You moved your goods to market on the roads the rest of us paid for. Yep. You hired workers the rest of us paid to educate. You built a factory and it turned into something terrific or a great idea. God bless. Keep a big hunk of it. But part of the underlying social contract is you take a hunk of that and pay forward for the next kid who comes along.
And Jonathan, she tapped into something with that no other national Democrat really has been tapping into. I mean, she raised a huge amount of money in small dollar donations for her Senate campaign, and she became, in a lot of ways, I said it at the time, I think, the Democratic Chris Christie, a viral video that made her a national star.
She raised $42 million in her Senate campaign, second only to who? Somebody named Clinton. Hillary Clinton raised more than that in 2006 when she was running for re-election in New York. But, of course, as we know, a lot of that money was given to her for other purposes besides getting reelected in the Empire State. But besides the $42 million, she also built this army of grassroots supporters up. Hundreds of thousands of small dollar donors that she has. Her list is probably second in Democratic politics, only to Hillary Clinton herself in terms of still active politicians. That video was so important that a fellow named Obama actually
I was just going to bring this up.
Picked up some of her rhetoric and got in trouble for it.
Well, this is the problem.
He did not deliver it with the
saying you didn't build that.
I was going to say, I was like, we built this.
It became the Republican National Convention's rallying cry. They had huge signs that said, "We built."
Although I guess the Obama people would now say they were laying this elaborate trap because the Republicans botched their convention by taking the bait. But yes, he did not deliver the line the way she did. She did give the sort of thematic.
But isn't that Elizabeth Warren's whole strength? Is that she can articulate these liberal ideals in a way that really no one else can, and no one else has demonstrated, including Hillary Clinton.
Which is why I say the Democratic Chris Christie, because that's what Chris Christie does on the Republican side with those virals. But we got to cut this off.